Hi, and welcome to Getting Down to Business. I'm your host, Pat Frew, Executive Director of the Covington Business Council. This program explores economic development issues and topics in Covington and Kenton County. We want to thank TBNK for being a broadcast partner on this program. Today we're going to explore the latest and greatest and what is happening in one of our most valued Covington neighborhoods, Mainstrasse. Joining me today is Mainstrasse Village Association Executive Director, Chip Adkins. Chip, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Pat.
And we're going to begin by talking about two of the biggest developments to hit Mainstrasse in some time, River House and Green Lofts. Tell us what's going on with those projects.
Well, as you're all probably aware right now, River House is in active development. We have a lot going on over there. They are in high gear now that the weather is starting to cooperate with them at this point. Causing the normal problems that construction cause and the challenges, but it all has an end that we're all looking forward to greatly. When it's done, we're going to have 180 some odd residents there, businesses as well, new businesses coming into the village of many stripes, and it's going to change everything about Mainstrasse in so many respects.
Right, and let's give people a visual of this. River House is the project right along 5th Street, there by Main Street, where there used to be a big surface parking lot. Yes. And now it's kind of a gigantic hole in the ground. But
it is a gigantic hole in the ground, but you've got to start somewhere, and that's where they have to start. So yes, so it will take up pretty much that from what is the Tobin Center there, and then going along 5th Street till you get to Main Street, and then going down to where Bouquet Restaurant is. So that's, and then back up to the rest of the village, basically.
Right, and then Green Lofts is the where the John R. Green building used to be, about a block behind where River House is going.
It is the old John R. Green building there between Bakewell and Main Street, off of 6th Street between 6th and 7th. So, of course, a big part of that is an historical structure, which will be left there and then built around, and this will take up most of that block between 6th and 7th Street.
Yeah, and while both of these buildings are mixed-use, residential, some retail, parking is a huge component. And talk about that specifically in number of spaces for each and in total, and what that should do to alleviate problems that really the village has struggled with for years between residents and retailers and their customers.
Parking, it seems like that's always the topic that we discuss in Mainstrasse. And we're no different than any urban core and any urban core development. Parking is always an issue. We hope to quit talking about it at some point. But in this case, let's take the River House project, for it to start, we had to lose parking spaces. And so that has been our challenge at this point, and the challenge in partnering with the city. We've managed to make up those spaces. They're in different places. They're on the street. We're using a number of lots around that are close by. Both of these projects will not only come with parking for their residents and parking for their businesses, which is critical, obviously. We don't want to add to the pressure that we have on our street parking now, but they're also going to bring in parking and have parking for public use, paid parking, that kind of thing that you're going to see more and more of, and both of those will have that component to it. In total, I'm not going to talk numbers because I don't know the numbers specifically, but what I have seen is that we're going to see that we're going to have a net gain of some parking spaces, and that's important. I think what's been more important to us is that we are discussing now issues not just about how many parking places we have, but what do we do to work with these new realities that our urban cores are popular again. Mainstrasse especially. The business district has noticed the same thing, but we are extremely popular. And what do we do to address it, not just as a parking space issue? I've been talking with the city, and I've talked with, in discussions now with Uber and Lyft and some other people to attack this from a different vantage point. We are looking at things like expanded valet and having more of that around, because ultimately if we're not addressing not just the parking issue and the parking space supply, but if we're not addressing our attitudes about parking and about cars, then we're doing a disservice not only to our neighborhood, but to the city as a whole. So it's allowing us to have some discussions I think we've needed to have for quite a while in Mainstrasse and in Covington.
And with all the good happening with these projects, Chip, it's also going to talk about the neighborhood evolving and changing, both for residents as well as some of your existing businesses in Mainstrasse. Talk about the pressure point there and how businesses will need to respond and up their game, those that have been there for a while.
Mainstrasse, if it's been nothing else, has been a funky neighborhood for a lot of years. We have probably one of the most eclectic assemblies of businesses in the city, in fact, in the region. A lot of mom and pop stores, a lot of startups, even our restaurants. You know, you're not going to see many chain. Well, in Mainstrasse proper, you don't see any chain restaurants. You know, everything is independently owned. And for a lot of years, we've been able to run it with that neighborhood feel. These two developments are going to bring in a different clientele. They're going to bring in a different kind of resident, not a different kind necessarily, a lot more residents, and a lot more residents that have differing needs than what we have had to address in the past. They're also going to bring in, you're going to see a lot of corporate, probably, businesses come in. You're going to see a lot of businesses come in that are well established. And so we're all going to have to, we've talked about this in the association and just other business owners and myself. We're going to have to kick up our game. We're going to have to learn how to address this new clientele that's coming in and these new residents. It's even been a challenge for the association. You know, for a lot of years we were very business oriented, and we, in the last year especially, have started to try to equalize our focus among residents and businesses. And with all of these new residents coming in, we're finding that we're going to have to really address residential concerns and needs and wants just as much as we do business needs and wants. And so it's going to be a challenge for all of us. And a lot of businesses right now are starting to look forward to that and start thinking about how they're going to respond to this new influx.
And let's talk a little bit about the association and the leadership itself and the board. I know you've been pleased in our conversations privately in the past in terms of the enhanced involvement on the part of your board members. Talk about that a little bit and why it's been important to MSVA's continued growth and development.
Well, one of the things that we realized is that we are only as good as the number of people that are involved in the association. We are a neighborhood association, and it's not good if we only have a few people that are making all the decisions and determining the direction of the neighborhood. Last year, we changed our bylaws to expand our board and make it bigger. I think we may even make it bigger next year. We're not sure yet. We also changed our bylaws to say, and it is now an explicit part of our bylaws, that our board must equally represent business and resident interests at all times. Now, having said, you know, I am an executive director, and while I'm not the first one to be a volunteer, I'm probably the first one in a long time. And one of the things that means is that we need a highly active board, and we have one. I've got a board of 20 people. We never have to worry about making a quorum. The board is always there. They're making decisions. They're doing what they have to do. My job is not to make decisions. My job is to implement their decisions and to implement the will of the board in whatever they say. And that can only be done if they're making the decisions. And this board is doing so. I'll give you a good example, festivals. This year I've got a vetting committee. We had over 250 applications for festivals this year for new vendors. And of those, you know, it would have taken Donna and I forever. Donna's our office manager, director, and it would have taken us forever to go through those things. 7 people on the board volunteered to help me wade through those and picked some great people that are going to be joining us this year. You're going to see festival chairmen. We've got 2 of them this year, and they're both very active and making decisions. This is how this association is going to meet the challenges that it's going to face in the next few years and the challenges it already face. I mean, the last 18 months, as we all know, we've had some serious challenges to face. And we've met them head on because the board has been willing to meet, to make decisions, and to make the hard decisions. This board right now is made up, I would say, less than half of the current board are people that have been involved with the association for a long time. At least half of this board right now are people that either haven't been involved with the association or haven't been for quite a while, and now they're back. It brings a talent that we need. You know, I can only do so much. I have very narrow vision and focus many times. And when you've got 20 people sitting around a room and sitting around a table, it makes all the difference in the world. I can tell you it takes a lot of the pressure off me to have that kind of talent and that kind of dedication.
And what have you all learned? Obviously, difficult financial problems, you've made your way through that. And besides engaging more people, any other lessons that you've learned?
Yeah, I'd say the biggest lesson that we've learned is that we don't need to wait to change. We shouldn't wait until we hit a crisis point. Last year we hit a couple of crisis points and we were forced to change. Thankfully we did so, and we had people who were ready to do that, and that made all the difference. But what we're doing now is we're looking and we're seeing the challenges, we're seeing the things that are coming up, and we're changing as we need to. We're changing incrementally, and that's, you know, that's the way we should. We don't want to be the same organization 10 years from now that we are today. In fact, I can tell you the organization that we are today will not be able to meet the needs of the neighborhood 10 years from now. It's going to change that drastically. So that was probably our biggest lesson. And then I would say the other lesson that we learned was that we need to think not only as a neighborhood. We are a neighborhood association. You can't get around that. We are an association of businesses, residents, and other interested parties. But we cannot survive. I guess our attitude is, as it is now, as Covington goes and as Northern Kentucky goes, we go. We live or die by those associations that we have with our neighboring organizations. And that was probably one of our biggest lessons this year.
Okay, it's time to take a break. We'll be back in a moment. You're watching Getting Down to Business. We'll be right back.
Hello. Yes. Can I ask a few questions about the apartment on Park Street?
What was your name?
My name is Juan Hernandez.
It's been rented.
Oh, it's gone. Hello, my name is Sanjay Kumar. I am calling about the apartment on Park Street.
It's not available.
Not available? Hello, my name is Tyrone Washington. I'm calling about the apartment on Park Street.
Just been rented.
Hello, I am Chen Ling. My name is Khalid bin Ali. I'm Tuan Vo. Hello, my name is Moshe Goldberg. I use a wheelchair. It's gone. Not available. All right. Thank you. Yes, hello, my name is Graham Wellington. I'm calling about the apartment for rent on Park Street. Is that still available?
Yes, it is.
Oh, it is?
Yes.
Really?
Housing discrimination is illegal. If you think you've been a victim because of your race, color, national origin, sex, religion, disability, or family status, call us. Fair housing. It's not an option. It's the law.
And we're back. You're watching Getting Down to Business. I'm your host, Pat Frew. Today I'm talking with Chip Adkins, Mainstrasse Village Association Executive Director. And Chip, I wanted to get into some of the events that Mainstrasse Village Association does on an annual basis. And with all of the changes that the association is going through, let's also talk about what that means in terms of maybe new events and the ones that already exist.
Well, you know, I don't know if you've noticed or not, but we've kind of got a tagline for the association this year, and it's in basically everything that we do. And the tagline is Mainstrasse Village, people live here, people work here, people play here. It is what we are. We feel like that we as a neighborhood have resources that most neighborhoods around the country would die to have, basically. You know, we've got great housing stock, we have great residents, we have an amazing diversity of businesses, and we put on some of the best and most premier events in Greater Cincinnati and in Northern Kentucky. And you know, we have one coming up. You know, we've got Mayfest, we have GetaFest, we have Oktoberfest. And for a lot of years, those events were great. We had started noticing that they were changing, and that what people wanted from those events was changing. So last year, we spent a good part of our year trying to evolve those. You will see this year festival layouts that bring the village into the festivals. You will see festivals that are bigger. We have added, for example, for Mayfest, well, really for all of our events this year, we have added a little over 40 new vendors, arts and crafts that you have not seen before. We've even added some dog arts and crafts vendors that are coming in this year. We've added a number of new food and beverage options. You're going to see vegetarian food. That's one thing I always heard was not enough vegetarian food or not any vegetarian food. You're actually going to see 2 booths and 2.5 that are catering to vegetarians this year, which is unheard of in many festivals. You're going to see more family-oriented entertainment. We're expanding Kinderplots even more this year, adding some more rides. We're adding, last year we did the Cincinnati Illumination, did light up the clock tower at Oktoberfest. We're going to do that on all of our events this year. We're going to do tours of the clock tower, continuing that from last year so people can see that and see what is going on. So you're going to see a bigger festival. You're going to see the beginnings of a change festival. And we're going to continue to evolve those things. At this point, we are, I can't think of the best word, we are trying out ideas that we have and seeing what works. Last year we tried a few. Some of them worked, some of them didn't work. You won't see those again. And we learned some lessons. But our events need to change and to evolve with the neighborhood. These big 3-day events put a lot of stress and strain on our neighborhood. You can only imagine setup days, only imagine what they do to that thing that shall not be named called parking. You know, what does it do to that? And we're now starting to think about, you know, how many of these we can actually do. Mainstrasse can't be the center of every event in Covington. There's just no way it's possible. But at the same time, we've got to look at our current events and figure out how we make them fit into a new neighborhood that is going to have 250 plus new residential units. That's a lot. And what does that do to us? So we're starting to think that and evolve that. But you're going to see some exciting changes this year.
One thing we haven't talked about for a while, and that's the restoration of the clock tower. How is that coming along with the fundraising for that? You've established a foundation, I think, for that group.
Actually, the MSVA is not involved in that.
Okay.
That is the Tower Legacy Foundation. They just got their 501c3 status, and you're going to be hearing and seeing a lot from them over this year. They are the ones who actually run the clock tower tours. They're going to be telling you a lot more about the history this year of the tower. They're the ones who are working with Verdon, who is the one who maintains the clock tower, and they're going to be working on the plans for restoration of some of it that hasn't been working in a while, as well as enhancing what is there already. So it's moving along. Obviously, setting up a new tax exempt and foundation does take a little bit of time, but everything seems to be there now, and so you're going to be hearing a lot more from them over the coming years.
That's great. We talked earlier about the importance of getting helping hands from your board, but you also need helping hands from the community and partnerships. And I'm delighted that the Covington Business Council can play a small hand in a big project that's going to help the MSVA board and its groups create more profitable events, and that's related to electricity. Why don't you fill us in on some of the details?
And let me add also safer events.
Yes.
We have, anybody that's been to our festivals in the last 30 years knows that one thing about them is we have extension cords running all over the place. It's the only way we can get electricity where we need it to be. And we've talked for probably a decade or more about how we can change this. But of course, changing that comes with a price tag. And we were having some discussions about this, and we had a family foundation here in Covington who approached us and asked if we would be open to them donating money for us to do this. Basically, the project entails, and we have not gotten this all the way through approvals yet, working with the city now. In fact, we go to a city commission meeting soon, and we're going to be trying to work out whatever details we need to with the city. But basically, the project in its final form, if we get everything done, will be to put all of this electricity in in-ground boxes all up and down the islands of Steinford Park. I don't know if you're familiar or not, but the promenade that we have up and down 6th Street is actually a park, and it's called Steinford Park. And what we want to do is put these in-ground boxes so that we can get rid of running these tens of thousands of feet of electrical cord. Like I say, it's a big safety improvement. It definitely is a cost savings for the association. And the CBC has kindly agreed to be our fiscal sponsor for this. And it is, this is just one example of many of things we're working on to partner with other organizations. We're looking to expand our opening ceremonies this year for our festivals. And one of the big points that we want to make in these festivals is take the clock tower, take Mainstrasse as a whole. It's not the village. It doesn't just belong to Mainstrasse. It belongs to Covington. And our focus of our opening ceremonies is going to be a We Are Covington focus. And we want to focus on the neighborhoods. Covington is made up, and I'm going to get this number wrong, it's either 18 or 19 neighborhoods. But we want to focus on the fact that, yes, we are all of these distinct neighborhoods, but we are only as good as we are together and working together. So we've got the Center for Great Neighborhoods working with us. We're starting to work with Renaissance Covington on some ideas that we have for some projects that we can work on together. You see some tangible evidence of this. I don't know if you remember a couple of years ago, a group called Make Gobel Great got together, and if you remember Gobel Park at that time, our playground was not a place you wanted to go take your kids to play. They raised the money. It didn't cost the city anything other than the city coming in and helping us get the infrastructure in place. And they raised the money to get this playground. And now it is a great place. And we see kids coming from all over Covington to play here. These are examples of what happens when our neighborhoods work together. And as an association, we understand now, this board understands very well, that this is how we're going to move Mainstrasse forward as well as moving Covington forward.
Yeah, I can't tell you what a great pleasure it is to work with you and other of the key members of your board. It's great, and Covington needs to move outside of the silos that for years a lot of these different business groups have maintained. I mean, we have basically the semblance of 4 different business groups in Covington, and they don't always work well together, but we have a great working relationship at the CBC with Renaissance Covington, and now we have a great working relationship with MSVA, and that's what it's going to take to bring this community together, working in a collaborative way like this.
I think you're right about that, and the other piece of that we all tend to forget, we tend to sometimes think that everything is the city's responsibility. And while I agree, it is the city's responsibility to give us guidance and direction and to kind of keep the whole thing moving along, keep the whole package going, ultimately the city can only do so much. It is up to us as neighborhood organizations or even as business organizations, whatever it might be. It is up to us to come together, give the city ideas, give them reasons to put money in certain places or to put their efforts in certain places. They have a big enough job just running the city. And the rest of it should be up to us. It should be up to us to determine our own futures. And we can only do so together. It's just like I could not run the MSVA by myself. There's no way. I rely on these 20 people constantly. And I email them more. They'll laugh and they'll tell you I email them, maybe not too much, but all the time, which I do. Because we need that input. I working on a festival that's coming up right now, and we were having a meeting the other day, and here we are just a few weeks away from a festival. And we were working on something, and I thought I had all the plans in place, and one of the festival chairmen said, well, that wasn't what I envisioned. And so he drew it out for me, and I waffled back and forth between, oh boy, more work, to no, this is a beautiful idea. And as of today, we're going to see some big changes, things that never would have hit me if I had been the one sitting here and thinking about it.
In our last couple of minutes together here, Chip, tell us how residents, businesses can better engage with MSVA and come alongside you, those that aren't already?
Volunteer. Come and work with us. Come and give us your ideas. We need them and we want them. It is the hardest thing is just getting the involvement of people. You know, if your expectations are that you're going to come in and change things and be involved in big changes, that's not what it is. We need people who to come in to shoulder the load, to work with us, to give us their ideas, and be willing to engage in a dialogue that may or may not end up the way that you want it to end up. It doesn't mean that we don't want the ideas. It just means we need people who are willing to engage in those kinds of things. So that is the first and key thing, be involved. I think the next one is to be willing to, I don't even know how to put this, to be willing to give of your, I'm losing it completely.
What's the best way for them to reach out to you and connect and let you know they exist and that they want to help? Phone you?
Call the MSVA.
Okay.
You'll go to mainstrasse.org, and MAINSTRASSE. There is no U in Mainstrasse, by the way. Mainstrasse.org. Our phone number's there. My email address is there. Donna's email address is there. You can get a hold of us. Join the association. Ultimately, if you're a business member, that comes with benefits. If you're a resident member, the benefit is you get to help shape the direction of your neighborhood. And that's the way that you're going to do it. The MSVA doesn't run the neighborhood, but we are who the city comes to when they have ideas and when they have questions and they want to know where things should be going. And this is how you're going to help, as a resident or a business, shape the direction of your neighborhood.
That's great. Thanks for joining us
Thank
today.
you.
That's all the time we have today. Our guest was Chip Adkins, the Executive Director of the Mainstrasse Village Association. We appreciate you watching. I'm your host, Pat Frew, Covington Business Council Executive Director. Join us next time for Getting Down to Business.